Imagine having access to a tribe of mentors consisting of some of the best tech leaders in the world, people you may have never heard of, but who in just an hour, you'll know their unfiltered career story. The bets they took, the decisions they made, where they failed, and the lessons that they learned along the way. Welcome to the What Makes You Tick podcast. Hello, I'm Tolu, aka the Podfather, and I host What Makes You Tick.
Hola, I am Richard Washington, founder of Tick Talent, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this episode because it's someone that I know very well, and he's one of my very favourite people. Tolu, who do we have on this week?
We have Oscar on the podcast this week. What did you think of the episode?
So, do you know what? Since we started doing this podcast, and you, Tolu, have had many conversations about Oscar because we've been part of his journey over the last few months. And he's had this incredible career. I got connected to him through Sean McCarry. Sean came onto my podcast a couple of times, and they were both, very senior roles inside Logitech. And we've just had lots of conversations. We speak almost daily on LinkedIn about various things, and we're testing different things together and going through a bit of a journey together. And he's just one of these incredible people, so much passion, so much fire comes through in his voice, but there's absolutely no ego. It's just pure growth mindset, pure dedication to wanting to improve, almost second guesses himself a lot of the time. And I don't think he might necessarily know how incredible he is, which I know that when people listen to this podcast will come across very, very strongly as soon as you start to hear Oscar telling his career story and the lessons that he's learned along the way. What about you, Tolu? You had the conversation. What did you enjoy the most?
So I think that from a conversation perspective, he's a very humble person. That's something that's very important to him. Comes from very humble beginnings in Spain, but has kind of worked his way up to this amazing career. And just his ability to be able to try lots of different things, put his hand to something new, and consistently scale businesses in different industries, different verticals. It's amazing. It was a really, really good conversation. Very handsome man, great teeth, great voice, great hair. What's not to love about Oscar?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely makes me feel very, very, insecure about my ever decreasing.
I was like, I need to get my teeth done because his teeth are like American perfection. I was just like, what is going on? But great conversation. Exactly. Great conversation.
Exactly. So I think anyone that's, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're working in sales, CS, whether you're first line manager, second line manager, third line manager, you're going to be able to learn from Oscar's career story because he's been there, done that. And he's just one of the top sales leaders within EMEA right now today. So without further ado, let's roll the VT.
Oscar, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it as well.
Absolute pleasure. So the first question is, Oscar, what makes you tick?
What makes me tick? People, 100%. I truly believe that everything starts and ends with people at all levels. Actually, I'm a leader because I always wanted to help my team members to grow, develop, and achieve whatever they aspire to. I think finding the personal and very different drivers that motivate people so that you can support and empower them in their journeys is really, really fascinating. But farther than that, or maybe intrinsically related with that, that's also true for customers, right? I have a wonderful opportunity to have a positive impact on customer success with technology, and doing so by fostering mutual growth, innovation, helping them to overcome their challenges and seize their opportunities. So that's really a gift. And that's basically why I do what I do. And I guess that's what makes me tick.
And you mentioned there's kind of a fascination. Where did that fascination start from?
I think early on in my life, right? I mean, when I was a young boy, I was playing football and I was trying to I was quite good at it. So I was trying to help my colleagues to become better, and I was like the team captain, and I was like cheering everybody up, and I was like trying to let's work as a team, let's forget about individuality. So it was from I come from a sports related background,
Okay.
and then I guess that it comes with a personality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's who you are, and you cannot split yourself into the personal side of you and to the professional side of you.
Mm.
Both personalities are, or both sides of you are split, and I'm like that as a person. So from an early age, and it's very interesting because now my son, who's 8, is
Yeah.
exactly the same as I was. Exactly, it's like a perfect replication, but improved,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course.
Good. Good.
But it's a perfect replication of myself, only better.
And is that what your parents were like then, or was that something different for you? Like, what
No,
did your parents do?
I actually was raised by my grandparents.
Right.
Yeah, I never met my father, and for whatever reason, I was raised by them in a small rural area in Spain.
Wow.
So at the beginning, it was, I mean, childhood before, and I'm sounding like an old guy, but was told.
I feel the
was
same. Don't worry. I feel the same.
Thank you. It was different, right? You were more independent, and imagine in
Yeah.
a very small village, like 1,000
Wow.
citizens. So I was by myself nearly all day with my friends, like hanging out, and that was my life, and playing sports and school sports, like
Yeah.
sleep. That was the history of my life back then. So I think that it wasn't influenced by my family. It was
Okay.
something that, yeah, it was naturally like born in and growing inside me, I guess.
That's amazing.
That sounded poetic.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So do you think that leaders are born or made?
I think a combination of both.
Okay.
I think that certain traits help, like charisma or the
Yeah.
ability to motivate people or energy, and you cannot, or it's difficult for you to build those if you don't have them naturally. But on the other hand, you can also be a great leader without having necessarily
Yeah.
those items. So you can be coming from another angle, and you can be very good, like reading people, or for
Yeah.
example, like coaching people or educating people, or you
Yeah.
can be, I mean, you can have the right values and the right culture so that people follow you, not because you are a very charismatic leader, but
Yeah.
because you are a leader,
Yes.
irrespective of what kind.
Yes.
I think that there are different kinds of leaders, and depending on the attributes, I think that some pieces of those leaders are actually embedded in their DNA, and
Yeah.
some of the others are simply like trained and developed and grown with time.
I love that distinction, because I think that sometimes when we think of leaders, we think of the charismatic, when they walk into the room, everybody's like, wow. I think that is important. I think that also some of the other things that you're talking about in some of those one-to-one moments, being curious, emotional intelligence, I think that those are things that everybody can learn. Everybody can learn how to ask questions. Everybody can
Yes.
learn how to take a second before they respond. And that also makes up part of leadership, because sometimes those charismatic leaders, they don't have that other side of stuff. So
Exactly.
it's this really important balance. Really, really like that. Really important balance.
Yeah, I think that it's a mix of things, and
Yeah.
you cannot make it will be fantastic to make the perfect leader,
Yeah.
right? But it will be the perfect leader for me, and maybe not the perfect
Not
leader
for
for
you.
you, right?
Exactly.
So at the
Exactly.
end of the day, there are people that are very attracted to this charismatic leadership that you mentioned. I am attracted to that kind of leadership, to be honest. But I know, for example, that that I let me tell you a story. I was in a CRO course in Pavilion, right?
Okay.
And one of the teachers was like very, very energetic, very charismatic. I won't tell you his name. Their name. Sorry, but
Giving it away already.
he was a he. Okay, you got me there. But he was really, really powerful, energetic,
Yeah.
charismatic, like nearly overwhelming. And I felt super connected with that. And I talked with my wife, and I said, listen, this guy is great. Whoa, what an energy. I want to work for someone like him.
Yeah.
And next day, the video recording was already in the platform, so we could see it together. And actually, my wife was watching it, and she was like, "I find it super aggressive."
Yeah.
And I went, "Really?" Yeah, I would be super overwhelmed with a boss like this, and I
Wow.
would be a bit like
Yeah.
intimidated.
Yeah.
And I was, whoa, again, because
Yeah.
that happens very often when you are leading multicultural teams, right? You need
Oh,
to be able to be different leaders at once, so
yes.
that you can find ways to communicate,
Yes.
to connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
But in this case, it refreshed me. It was a great refresher for me. That
Yes.
it works for me, it doesn't work for her, right?
Mm,
So don't assume that the perfect leadership is always the same, because it's not.
no, it's really that ability to adapt, isn't it? And be
Yes.
able to be different things to different people and at different times. Because sometimes you might not need that heavy charisma. Sometimes you might need that quiet conversation, even you as the same person, you know? So it's
I
timing
totally agree.
and people. Yeah. Yeah. So what you mentioned about leading across cultures. So a little bit kind of about your history. So where have you kind of worked? So you mentioned you were from Spain. Where have you kind of worked through your career?
Yeah, well, I started in a very, very unconventional kind of environment, totally different to the very fancy software companies or tech companies that I worked at later. I started selling books, encyclopedias, actually,
Right.
door-to-door sales.
Okay.
And
Okay.
actually in a moment where when nobody wanted them anymore. So it was like, okay, in the street,
Mhm.
0 degrees in winter, door to
Was that in
door.
England or in Spain?
No, it was in Spain. It was
In
Spain.
Spain. Okay.
And it was like hearing like 12, 14, 20 no's,
Yeah.
and eventually having a yes, probably at 10 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
and saving your day because of that. So it was amazing. It was like, from a resilience point of view, it was
Mm.
super enriching. Some of mm, mm, part of my DNA as a leader is also today still shaped because of that. I
Mm.
mean, resilience, drive, flexibility, adaptability, like all of those elements
Yeah.
are really embedded in my leadership style, and it all started back then. Then I started at Groupon, so e-commerce giant,
Mm.
when I barely knew what the word e-commerce meant. Don't ask me how I got the job,
Yeah.
but I started as sales manager, managing one part of Spain,
Mm.
and then I was promoted in less than 1 year to a VP position. So I
Wow.
learned quickly. It was a hyper growth phase, so it was really, really fun and really rapid. Everything changed from one day to the other,
Yeah.
which is not for everybody, but in that moment it was for me, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Sorry.
Then go
What
ahead.
do you think got you promoted from the sales manager role to the VP in such a short space of time?
Well, I think that I was successful in my role. That if you are not successful, it's difficult to be
Yeah.
promoted, right? So that's one. And then I think that both my manager, the HR people, especially the HR director, and my teammates in the other areas of Spain, uh, were very keen to have me promoted, and that was really an honor for me.
Mm.
And it was a combination of factors. I was successful. I was appreciated by my colleagues. I was willing to do more, because you need to have the willingness to climb up the ladder,
Mm.
and it's totally acceptable that you don't. But in
Yeah.
my case, I was really, really driven by that, and I had the opportunity. My boss left, so I also had the
I think
position and
open.
the chance to step up, and yeah, I went for it, and I got it, and I was thankful and humble for that.
Because I think it's really interesting, because kind of when you say, I went from sales manager to VP in a year, it just kind of happens, but it sounds like there's actually quite a lot that goes into it, and some of it you can't control, like for example your boss leaving, so the opportunity is created. But
Absolutely.
if you hadn't done the other things which you can control, then actually, like, people wouldn't have put you in there. So that's why I just wanted to understand a bit more practically about how did you actually get those people to appreciate you and the work that you do? How did you demonstrate that actually you're ready for that kind of next level?
I think that probably there's a combination of factors again, right? On the one hand, I mean, you need to give things without expecting anything in return. That's the first thing, and I'm talking about the willingness to do more and to think beyond the scope of your job, right? And that entails like trying to help your colleagues, even though that won't give you anything in return in the short term. Trying to bring new ideas and new proposals and be very very what's the word? Very or become a very obvious asset for your boss, for your manager, right?
Understand.
Right? In terms of okay, when that person wants to discuss something, you need to be there for him or her to actually deliver a fresh perspective, or maybe play the devil's advocate, or maybe bring a new, completely crazy idea that will bring innovation to the table. And on the other hand, I think that it's your willingness to do more things, to help more people, to establish the right culture, to not only like, okay, this culture is great and I'm in the middle of it. I'm consciously driving that, right? And helping the others drive that, and helping them to embrace change and to embrace growth and to embrace a different issue each day, right? So it's a combination of factors, I think.
I love that. That makes so much sense, because those are sometimes the things that are not necessarily in your job description, but they make a big difference, especially when you go up to the next level. If you know how to connect with different people, get the culture right, help people to perform, that's massive for a leadership team,
and I think that other factor is being very vocal about it, about what you want. Don't expect anybody to read between the lines and assume that you are willing to climb up the ladder or to be promoted or to. You need to be very, very vocal about that. I'm here. I want more. I'm doing a good job. I want to learn more. I want to grow. I want to bring my talent farther, right? And I want you to help me to and I'm humble enough to accept that I probably have lots to learn still today, of course. But on the other hand, I want to do it. I want to embrace that. I want to take that challenge and make it make an opportunity out of it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for indulging my detour. So if we go back, so after Groupon, what happened?
Yes. After Groupon, I another change of scenery. You will, and I think that you know, but you will find out, and the anybody who's listening to this will find out that I don't have a linear career. I actually believe that that's a bit of my trademark in what I bring to the table. Basically, is this holistic and very flexible kind of profile. So after e-commerce, with a bit of SaaS, I moved to a telco company, B2B telco company called Technology Services. It's a British corporation. They were already quite big, like 4,000 employees, something like that. And I was tasked to build and scale a new business unit from the ground up, literally from zero. I scaled it to 90 million, 95 million ARR in 3 years, opening 13 different markets in Europe, starting in a very commercial setup and moving up market to mid-market and even enterprise. So it was a great transition. And actually, I always make fun about that, because I was finishing the MBA back then, and it was like, okay, I'm learning a lot of stuff. I want to implement some of the stuff in real life. How come that nothing works like it's supposed to? It was like, it doesn't work. It's super easy in paper. It's not that easy in real life, but it was interesting to merge the kind of more like the everything that I was studying and everything that was happening in real life, and how that's not a perfect match. You
Yeah.
learn that the hard way. But it was a great phase in my career. And then I moved to TomTom. And it was an interesting move because, of course, the company was struggling with the navigation devices. I remember I received a call from a headhunter with whom I still keep the relationship. She's great. And she told me, hey, I have a great position for you. It's about creating a new go-to-market model and scale a commercial organization globally at TomTom. And I said, TomTom? No, thank you. And no, they are having a
On the way
very tough
down, yeah.
time on there. And that was my perception. But actually, she was like, yeah, they are actually declining revenue on the consumer bit 20-30% year on year. That's true. But that's why they have invested big time into pivoting into software, right? So they bought a company in Germany, they bought another one in Spain, and they created a new business unit, TomTom Telematics. Eventually, that became WebFleet and was acquired by Bridgestone. So, and I scaled that organization from early stages to a very strong B2B SaaS kind of enterprise model with more than 100 people, regional leaders reporting to me, outbound marketing reporting to me, customer success. I built and scaled the customer success organization as well. And I started as a second line manager. I ended up as a third line manager, and it was a hell of a ride with great colleagues, a great team that I miss dearly. Still today, I think that is probably one of the best teams that I have led. And great leaders as well. I worked with Thomas, who was the CEO. He was great. Taco was my direct boss. Amazing. We're friends now. Jeremy was the VP of Global Sales, and we're friends still today. And yeah, the people that I had in my team, they were amazing. It was a great ride.
What did you learn going from a second line manager to a third line manager? What were some of the differences?
Well, I think that you need to have more of an helicopter view, so and without losing grip over the day-to-day business. That's a bit of the difficulty, finding the right spot between being very strategic and actually hands-on. And I think that I'm very good at finding that sweet spot. I don't want to lose it because when things become a bit political, I don't like it. I want to still be in the day-to-day action with my people, with customers. That's what I like, to be honest, and that's where I provide value, together with providing the strategic framework. So I think that the critical point here is finding that perfect balance between being very strategic, step out of the day-to-day business and be able to create the right framework in terms of strategy, in terms of go-to-market, in terms of marketing and sales channels, in terms of all the metrics that probably are not that related with the day-to-day business. Of course, if you are a first-line manager, you are managing activity and hearing calls and coaching people in real time, and that becomes a bit different when you are like second line and third line, and you need to be more like involved with the financial part of the business. So gross profit margin, CAC, LTV, rule of 40, all those elements are becoming more important. But then you need to be able to step in and being very, very, very surgical in your approach in certain stages of the process, right? And I love that. I love to be able to zoom in and out of the business. And I think that finding the sweet spot is difficult, but it's something that I think that I do very well, to be honest.
Are there any tips that you have? So like, let's say you're mentoring me and I'm coming to you because I'm struggling to find the sweet spot. What advice would you give to me? Like practically, what can I do to try and find that sweet spot?
First is it should be an intention in it, right? I mean, you need to embrace that change intentionally. And I find that some people who struggle with that is because they are not willing to understand that hey, this is a change. You are not a first line manager anymore. You are probably not a second line manager anymore. You have another type of responsibility, right? And it's more a company broad responsibility. And that's one. So embrace it with the right intent. Then I think that is delegate and trust your team, delegate what you were doing before, and in an ideal scenario you will have done that before.
Yes.
I mean, what I try in my teams is, okay, I'm in this position, but I'm thinking in the next, so I'm preparing the succession plan already, right? And I love that element of mentoring, coaching with my team. And I always identify 2 people, 3 people, which with potential to grow and do more. And I actually start to train them and to coach them and to mentor them already for whatever will happen in the future, right?
Yeah.
So that helps you when you are actually in need of embracing this like zoom out perspective. That helps you to have the right setup, the right philosophy embedded in the culture of your team, and the right people stepping up so that you can focus on a different angle or see things from a different angle.
Yes.
With enough trust. You need to trust your team. And that delegation process is difficult for some people. I think that if you do it proactively before you need to do it reactively, it works better.
And then how do you still stay connected to some of that kind of day-to-day stuff, even though because you're so right, like the delegation piece, firstly, it's quite tough, especially when you're good at doing. It's quite tough to let go and to delegate, but how do you not get so far away from it, from your zoomed out view, that you lose some of that understanding? Because that helps to build a good strategy.
Absolutely. I think that you need to be connected on a day-to-day basis. You need to it's the same when you are a sales manager and you are not a rep anymore, right? You are being promoted from AE to sales manager. You are not calling customers probably every day, but probably every week you are sitting with people, listening to calls, or preparing offers, or so it's a bit of the same. So I won't send an email every day to my team. Okay, the activity is this, the conversions are down, the pipeline value is dropping, or the volume is increasing, but what's going on here? I think it's more like I don't do it daily. But on a weekly basis, I may do it. And I, of course, it's also related with the cadence that you establish in the team, right? I mean, what kind of meetings, what kind of one-to-ones, what kind of coaching sessions, what kind of QBRs, weekly meetings, stand-ups, all hands, all of that gives you of course, the framework to control the business better, but also the framework to be connected with the business and with your team. And that's crucial. So I think it's all about establishing the right framework. And it's different when you are I was actually building my own framework when I was a sales rep. But then when I was a sales manager, I started to build a different framework. And when I was a director or a VP, they are different, but they are still frameworks. And those frameworks are very important, A, to help your team, B, to have visibility, and 3, to avoid being completely disconnected from the day-to-day business.
I think that's so important, but that's also not something we really like. You usually get promoted because you're good at your job. Do you know what I mean? But it's not like on day one as a director, here's the playbook for being a director. Here are the frameworks that you need, This is how you actually stay connected with your team, but still think strategically. I think those frameworks are so important.
It's like... It's a bit like being a parent, right? I mean, you don't have instructions. It's
like, there are books.
Yes, it's a bit different. But I remember, and it's something that we joke about often when I have a beautiful son, Alex. It's the most important piece of the puzzle of my life. And when we were like allowed to go home from the hospital, it was like, no, we don't want to go. We don't have a playbook for that. Where's the playbook? I need a playbook. No, I need a playbook, please. And it's a bit of the same. I mean, on the one hand, of course, you will have learned before. If you, I mean, it's all about proactivity versus being reactive, right? If you want to, you are AE or a SDR or a sales manager or a VP, and you want to be promoted and you want to step up to the next layer, I think that you need to be prepared before somehow, even though you may find difficult to be fully prepared, and that's totally normal. But at least you need to be able to project yourself into that position and actually start to understand or to try to understand things in a different way.
Agreed.
And at least when you are promoted and when you are already in those shoes, you don't feel like a stranger. Of course, you have a lot of challenges, but it's like, okay, I was projecting this. I was like trying to already embrace this, even though I didn't have it. And now I have it. And part of it, which is the more intangible elements of your philosophy as a leader, of your vision, of your attitude, even, or of the values that you think that position should have, are already there. And then you adapt that to the most practical elements. But you need to proactively seek that before you actually have the job.
Agreed. I think it comes back to what you said earlier about humility and being willing to ask to learn more, being willing to go to your boss and say, hey, what can I take from you? So I think a good leader delegates, proactively thinks about how do I get my people ready for the next level. A good follower will go to their leader and say, look, how can I make your life easier? How can I do things for you that you don't want to do, but I know that at the next level, I'm going to need to do that. So I think it's that mix of a great leader and a great follower. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I have done that all my life. And if you talk with my bosses, they will tell you, actually, Oscar is always searching for something, looking for something more to do. And actually that involves growth, and that involves also being willing to put on the work, right? And actually, because it's sometimes it's like you don't know how hard or how tough will it be until you're there and you learn it the hard way. But you need to be willing to go for it and just spend. I'm not talking about time because I believe in quality over quantity. But it's like, okay, it comes with a different kind of pressures. It comes with a different kind of responsibility, and you need to be prepared for that. And actually, I've always been like looking for that proactively. But you need to keep, on the one hand, it's that, again, sweet spot, right? Between drive. I'm very driven, but you need to be humble enough to. The other day, I was talking with someone and say, okay, what's again about playbooks, and I don't have a playbook. I may have some framework that could be applicable, but I believe that a leader who has a very firm and very clear, if you may, framework is not a good leader. Why? Because every business is different. Every team is different. Every go-to-market strategy is different. Time changes. I mean, look at where we are now, and 2 years ago, the world was different, right? So I think that the other day I answered, I don't have a playbook. I don't want to have one. And when I start in a business, the first 2 months, it's all about, okay, unlearning to learn again, okay? And being very humble and asking questions, stupid questions, but lots of questions. And then probably when you are 2-3 months in the job, you can start to understand things and you can start to, but I hate this kind of leadership sickness. I call it like that. Okay, you have been hired as a VP sales or a CRO or whatever. You feel that pressure in the first months to change things. No, the first months are not about that. Are about understanding. You don't need to change anything. Actually, you need to probably change yourself. Right? Change your whatever you think worked in other settings. You need to challenge that. And then the job itself will challenge that. People surrounding you, and that is something that I'm very demanding with my teams about. I mean, they need to challenge me as well. But at the beginning, you need to be humble to say, hey, I don't know anything. Okay? I want to learn. from you, from everybody, from every situation, from every day, and then you create this kind of mental map and start to questioning things, and questioning before changing things. Questioning, for me, it entails collaboration with the team. So I don't like to, hey, I want to change this, I change it. It's more like challenging my team. Okay, why do you do this like you're doing it right now? Does it work? Could it be improved? Have you thought about doing it in this way or in this way? And it's not that I have already changes in my head. It's brainstorming. It's like giving the opportunity to your team to actually challenge the status quo together with you, using you as a driver because you're new, right? And it's a good opportunity for your team to challenge things themselves, their teams, the status quo, everything.
Yes.
And I like that. I like to be challenged, and I'm a challenger as well.
I think because it's so easy to be comfortable, and sometimes it does take that new person to ask the right questions, not to just say this is changing. You're so right. Like the questions and the understanding. If you understand, you can make the right changes. Sometimes you make the wrong changes because you don't understand. So, see, I love your approach about questioning. So,
Thank you.
After TomTom, what happened?
After TomTom, I moved to Logitech. Again, a bit of an anomaly in my career because it was the first time that I was working in a more consumer-driven environment. Logitech is a big company, and 65% of the revenue is coming from the consumer bit. Everything that you associate with Logitech, mice, keyboards, webcams, it was a first time to me as well. So I was a very or a quite experienced leader in the B2B SaaS enterprise space, and in different segments. I started in commercial, mid-market, enterprise. So with a good grip on that, including sales, customer success, and marketing. And all of a sudden, I was like, again, this is completely different. This is about, working with distributors, first time for me. Wow. Working with shops, first time for me. Working with Amazon, first time for me.
Right.
Everything was new, and I needed to learn it. It was COVID, so I was working remotely. It was actually forbidden to travel.
Yeah.
So I was the first year, or the first 1.5 years, I was actually working from home 100% of the time without knowing even my team.
Wow.
In real life. So that was great. From an enriching perspective, but crazy as well, right? Because everything was crazy with the pandemic. Totally new environment. Of course, I also built a B2B enterprise organization, which was led by an amazing B2B leader that I hired, and we started growing it together. So that was one part of it, but the consumer part of Logitech is very important. And in total, it's a large organization, like we're talking about 300 million turnover.
Wow.
So it's a big organization.
And what were some of the big things that you had to adjust moving from B2B to B2C? So you mentioned about, working with distributors and shops and Amazon, but were there any other things that you had to change as a leader in terms of making that shift?
Yeah, of course. When you are coming from a pure B2B SaaS environment or recurring revenue scheme, it's the funnel or the flywheel, if you are including customer success, it's very clear, right? So it's like, marketing, generating opportunities or leads in the top of the funnel, then SDRs or BDRs, depending on the segment, like nurturing those deals, or inside sales closing directly those deals. If it's enterprise, more long tail and different touch points. So it was, even though you play with your supposed playbooks and frameworks, etc., and you adapt them to different environments, it was like a clear understanding of things.
Yes.
But in consumer, it's like, so supply and demand to start with. It was COVID. Logitech, a company which was growing historically an average of 10% growth year on year, was growing 80% or 70%. I don't even remember. But of course, that was great news, and it helped me big time in terms of achieving results. It helped everybody.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it created a lot of pressure from a supply versus demand point of view. We actually were like struggling big time to manufacture the supply for the demand that we were having. So these dynamics, imagine, obviously, if you're working with software, supply is not something that you consider at all, right?
No.
I mean, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And my wife works in supply chain, so it probably otherwise I will even know even don't know what that means. But starting to understand how the supply and demand engineering works, that was really a challenge to start with. And then understanding that it's not I mean, there's no funnel, right? I mean, there's like, you have country managers reporting to me. Those country managers have sales, marketing, and operations reporting to them. And then I had a central organization for South EMEA, right? But there's no funnel. Every quarter it starts from zero. I mean, and they are negotiating depending on the budget. Okay, you give me this budget, so I can give you this top line performance, right? And it's more like a trading kind of environment, right? I mean, it's the same that they experience with the shops or with Amazon, right? With Amazon, it's very mathematical. It's like, okay, and to be honest, I didn't have a clue about that. But it's like, okay, if you invest 1 million, I will give you 5 million. That's it. I mean, it's a pure maths game. Okay, so now if you don't give me this money, I will cut visibility, and you won't sell. So it's a bit of a wow. It was different to anything that I was like accustomed to used to in the past, right? And those were new elements for me.
Yeah. Wow. That's very different. That's very different. And I love this theme of adaptability, trying new things that kind of comes through your career. And what are some of the things that you think have been important in terms of how you approach it for you being successful in such a lot of change?
I think, again, first of all, being humble enough to understand that you don't know everything, and actually questioning what you do know. It's also interesting sometimes. And moreover, when you are changing industries, changing environments, or even completely different worlds, like from SaaS to consumer, right? So you need to be humble enough to understand, okay, I don't know how this works. I think that part of the success comes from being very vocal about that. So don't be shy about sharing that with people. I mean, when I joined Logitech, or when I joined Colt, or when I joined TomTom, my team was really aware that, okay, this is completely new for me. I will do my best to catch up and understand everything in the shortest time possible, but I don't have a clue. And that is actually something that I think resonates with people and creates the right culture, right? Because whatever you do will be replicated as a leader. And you need to be very conscious that with great power, the responsibility also comes, right? So that's part of it. I think to being able to avoid getting caught in the trap of trying to replicate things. Again, it's not like this worked at Groupon. It needs to be working here. It needs to work here. I will no. That's believe me, that doesn't work. So I come from a completely different angle. Actually, the other way around. Okay, I have this. Maybe it could help. I don't know. So the first months are for me to actually understand, and in parallel try to see if some of the things that were successful in different setups would be successful with a certain kind of adaptation here. And that's something that, and then learning from the people that are there already, right? When I joined Colt, people were in that industry not doing exactly what I was aiming to do because it was a new business unit, but there were like hundreds of people with different experiences that I could leverage, and I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When I moved to TomTom, again, I found a very, very interesting and talented group of people. My leadership team, the board, and my team, and I learned equally from all angles and from both sides of the picture, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I learned from my manager, I learned from the other senior leaders in the organization, I learned a lot from the CEO, but also I learned a lot from my team. I was actually trying to do that proactively every day, and that's something that it has happened as a constant in my career,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of my success, of my relative success. It's coming from that part, which is actually very linked to humility, right?
Yeah, I think so much comes from humility, because humility opens doors that would have been closed to you before. You know,
Yeah.
it asks the questions that you might not have asked before, so that gets you answers that you wouldn't have had before. So yeah, I love the kind of the focus. Like for me, everything starts from humility, 100%.
Yes,
And
I agree with that.
something that was also another pattern was kind of like this ability to scale, right? So if you had to give, like, what are your secrets to scale? Like, what are the things that, thematically work in scaling a business?
I think that it's a combination. Again, it's different things put in the same equation, and somehow they work, but they may work differently,
Yes.
and with a different environment, right? But I think, again, people, surround yourself with a great team, avoid the trap of hiring people like you, look for diversity, people who can challenge you and create
Yeah.
complementary teams is important for me. Then I think that there's an element of market research, segmentation, clear ICPs identified in the different segments, buying personas. Everything needs to be very clear from a go-to-market perspective. Then marketing and sales channels, you need to be very data-driven to understand what's the cost of acquisition, LTV, so that you can actually look for efficiency in that regard. In the marketing channels, of course, ROI and CAC versus LTV are super important to me, but also in the sales go-to-market. Do you need inside sales? Do you need SDRs? Do you need more strategic BDRs? Do you need account executives in sitting in the different markets? Do you need different layers of leadership? There's a big element in that regard. Then creating a solid performance management framework. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about everything from metrics and KPIs, reports, dashboards, and overall visibility, but also about processes, tools. I think that simplifying things as much as possible and provide tools and invest in technology to increase efficiency is important. Then I think that something that is typically overlooked and is very, very critical is sales enablement. So, and I know that lots of company thinks that they have sales enablement, but they are only working on onboarding, which is good.
Right.
It's just better than nothing. But I'm talking about more holistically tap into the sales enablement world. Onboarding, product training, different playbooks, recurrent development workshops, tools, market intelligence, objection handling, battle cards, everything together. Then I mentioned that before, the cadence or rhythm, it's very important because it gives you order, right? In terms of meetings, reviews, QVRs, one-to-ones, coaching sessions, stand-ups, all hands to work on the more informational and motivational sides of it. And also mapping the different touch points and content of your interaction with customers, of the customer journey, is really, really important. And then probably coming back to the culture, I think that accountability is very important. So set expectations, make sure that everybody knows what to do, and then keep high performing standards where under delivering is not an option. That I'm very supportive. I can be very hands on, and I will be for sure. But I will be very very demanding with my teams as well. So accountability is important. Cross collaboration critical. Revenue is a team sport, and I deeply believe in crafting an environment of collaboration and cooperation. And then motivation, transparency, and have fun. So all those elements,
All those
put it
things.
in the mix, and you have it. Yeah, you're ready to scale.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And just as we start to close, I want to go back to something that we talked about a little bit at the beginning. So one of the things that you said kind of that made you tick was leadership, and helping people to develop and grow. When you started your career, were there any things that surprised you or things that you didn't expect about leadership that you had to learn along the way?
Well, you don't expect it to be, to be that hard sometimes. And it's tough because you need to take decisions, and it's very difficult to work with people. It's amazingly great. I love it. But, and that's why I wake up every morning, because I love people and I love to have an impact on people. But on the other hand, it's difficult. You need to be very, very, very respectful. You need to be able to analyze and find out the different drivers that move the needle from different kinds of people in terms of culture, in terms of diversity, in terms of, what motivates you or what works for you will be different. That what does a good job for me, right? So I think that element, you don't anticipate the difficulty or how tough could it be, right? But you learn a lot by doing the wrong things as well, right? Like when you start to trying to replicate the way you interact with one person to the other, it doesn't work. People are different. When you are trying to manage one market, I've been managing more than 15 or 20 different markets, right? So what works in France, what won't work in the UK, won't work in Latin America, and let alone the United States. All right. So you need to be able to respect that. And of course, there's always this dichotomy between global and local. And when you are leading global teams, you need to find also the sweet spot in regards to that. But there's 60-70% of the things that you can create more or less a solid framework. But then 30% or maybe 20, I don't know. It's
the flex.
But you need to be able to adapt and to be flexible and to be humble enough to say, hey, this won't work here. But it's working there. So let's keep it, let's reinforce it, but let's drop it here, and it's fine. We tried it, or even if you are learning the hard way, you tried it, you failed, good, learn from it, wake up, you're good to go.
Yeah. I think that's so true, and it's almost like this globalization, right? Which is that mix of global, local, finding that right balance between the two. I think that's going to become increasingly important, because even if your company doesn't work or operate in lots of different markets, your team is going to be very diverse. Teams are becoming more and more diverse, which is a great thing. So we have to adapt. We have to learn how to kind of bridge those gaps between everything. So I love it.
I think that it comes down to communication and to transparency, right? How to understand what works for you, talking to you, right? And having, I will ask you, I will create a room for you to feel safe enough to tell me, hey, this doesn't work. I actually do an exercise every year with my teams that I love. That typically companies, we work in OKRs, and we are doing, okay, these are your yearly goals. Okay, let's put it in Workday, and let's review it every 6 months, or maybe if you're lucky, once in a quarter. And sometimes there are companies that once a year, right? So okay, that's that. I assume that's very very common, and of course I do that as well. But beyond that, for my own development, I ask my teams to I always create a bit of presentation saying, okay, what are the things that I'm doing that you want me to keep doing because they are adding value to you? Okay, so things that are working and you don't want me to drop. things that I don't do, but you will want me to start doing. Okay, things that I'm totally missing, right? For whatever reason. Imagine I probably didn't think about that, and I can implement those in some cases. Next day, I commit with my team. Okay, I will implement this from tomorrow. Okay, and it makes me grow, and I love it. And the other one is what are the things that I'm doing, and you want me to drop. I mean, you want me to stop doing for whatever reason, are demotivating you, are annoying you, are you think that are probably creating a barrier instead of an opportunity. And that's an exercise that works very well for me. But of course, you need to create a safe space so that everybody could feel, okay, I will be very open in my communication with Oscar, and I will let him know exactly what I think.
Yes.
And I value that boldness in my team, and I it's not only that they value it, I demand it, and it's something that I look for intensively.
Wow, Oscar, this has been awesome. Just as our last section, we do something called tick fire questions. So I'll ask you a few questions, kind of in quick succession, and just kind of the first things that come to mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, what is the difference for you between a good leader and a great leader?
I think that devil is in the details here. You could be a good leader by sticking to the main factors that we have touched upon in the conversation. But to be a great leader, you need to be willing to be different. So that's important. So be genuine, be authentic, be able to connect with people on a deeper level, and being humble enough to adapt to them and not the other way around. And I think that keeping in mind that people is everything. And when I'm talking about people, I'm talking about people in the organization, but also customers, right? And when you have this kind of vectorization very clear, I believe in these vectors, right? The individual should work for the team for the company for the customer.
Right. Yeah.
And that is what brings you to another standard.
Love that. Love that. What are the three things that you look for when you're hiring someone?
Curiosity, emotional intelligence, drive, and resilience.
Cool.
I don't, to be honest, it's probably I'm not looking too much into the CVs. I believe that if you are you have the drive, you have the curiosity, you are smart enough, you are willing to embrace new things. I have done that in the past. So, of course, if you are a brain surgeon, probably not.
Probably not, yeah. Maybe a little bit different.
Yes, I respect that. Yeah. But I believe in attitude. I believe in people who wants you to contribute to do things differently, to be like challengers in the organization. And actually, what I will look in one day will be different to what I will be looking for 6 months later. Because I believe in diversity. Really, believing in diversity is not like saying, okay, I believe in diversity. How do you integrate diversity in your team depends on the type of people that you have, right? From all angles and from all cultures and from all diversity as a whole, also diversity of thought. And then you need to be able to fulfill the gaps from a diversity and inclusion point of view, and not that back just because it's our social responsibility. It is, of course, but it's simply because it works. It's from a revenue perspective, being very salesy, it's absolutely proven that you will grow more by having a diverse and inclusive team, right?
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And what's the best leadership advice that you've ever been given?
I think that and this is something I'm still working on, to be honest. On the one hand, I told you, and you know me a bit, and we have talked a couple of times, I'm very, very driven, very passionate, very energetic, but sometimes I'm obsessively demanding with myself, kind of crazy perfectionist. So
Okay.
I'm never enjoying the path, and I'm looking obsessively to the goal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going there, so I will find ways to go there.
Yes.
But what about the path? What about the way? I mean, there's amazing views in here, right?
Yeah.
Let's enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
I'm not great at doing that. So I remember in a feedback session, I was told about that. You are so focused on where you want to go
Yes.
that you don't appreciate or lose sight a bit of the
The
view
journey.
of the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. So I remember once we went to Asia with my best friend, and I'm quite tall. I walk quite fast. When I'm going somewhere, I want to get there. He's quite short. He walks quite slow, and he looks around as we go. And there was one moment where he just stopped. He said, "Look at that thing in the tree." I'm like, what? What are you talking about? But in the tree, it's like we're going somewhere. Like, why are we? But he noticed something so beautiful in the trees as we were walking. And every now and then, when I'm driving somewhere, I just remember, okay, yes, don't kill us in the car, but also like look around at what the journey is. Like, you can be
Yes.
so focused. So yeah, I think that's so important. Just look around and actually take in what's happening.
And I think that probably that's my biggest win and my biggest loss.
Mm.
I talked about that before, but coming from a very humble background, I needed to work really hard to create a path for myself, right?
Yeah.
And when I finished high school, I started to work as a dishwasher and then as a
Yeah.
bartender, and then to be able to pay for my education. Then I started in sales, and I made a career out of it.
Yes.
Right. So that together with having a family that makes me want to be better every day, especially my son, who is the best thing that ever happened to me. That's my biggest win. But my
Yeah.
biggest loss is probably losing sight of all of that sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you have done quite an intro.
Quite well.
You have,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
done quite well, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not good enough with myself, I think.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I should value the journey more and
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm more like, okay, what I will do next
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
next 5
Yeah.
years, and why maybe I could learn this and I could learn that. And it's
Yeah.
great to have that growth mindset,
100%.
but again, you need to
Yeah.
find a balance
The sweet
between
spot. It's the
the
sweet
sweet spot about being very, very driven, which is good and it helps me. But
Yes.
on the other hand, being patient
Yeah.
enough to allow things to happen,
Mm.
and also being good enough with yourself to say, hey, I've done good things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's stop and enjoy it for a
Yeah.
moment. And
Yeah.
actually, it's funny because my teams I tend to be very good at that with my teams, but with myself, I'm very bad, actually. So my teams could say and actually say, okay, Oscar, what about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, think about yourself sometime,
Yeah.
right? Because you are like, you are not enjoying the ride and you're asking us to do so. Do
You have to
that,
lead by
please.
example. You have to lead by example.
But it's not only that, but it's a bit farther than that. It's
Yeah.
not that I don't lead by example. In this case, I have to admit that I don't.
That's
But
what I'm
it's
talking about.
but it's a bit beyond. It's even
Yeah.
like creating a bit of a concern from, and
Mm.
it's a good signal because that
Mm.
means that your
They care
people
about
and
you.
your team, they care about you.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, Oscar, be happy.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
happy
We
with
want you
this.
to be
I mean,
happy.
it's not only you to make us happy or to
Yeah.
make us successful.
Yeah.
We want you to enjoy the ride as well with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, people who are like good followers, they want their leaders. They want to make their leaders happy. You know, I
Yes.
work hard for my bosses because I love my bosses. I want to make you look good. So if I'm doing all that work and you're not happy, like, that's going to be hard for me as a follower to see that. Oh, okay,
It's
but
true.
I thought this is what he wanted. You know, so
It's
yeah,
true.
it's
It's
such the sweet spot is such an interesting.
Let's say that that's an area with lots of room for improvement.
Yeah. Oscar, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I know everyone else will too.
I've enjoyed it a lot as well, Todo. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Richard as well for forcing me to do that. I was really reluctant, and he said, "You need to do it." And I said, "No, I really mean on video. I don't like it."
Really?
Yeah, it's always when I see videos of me presenting in, I don't know, in all hands or kickoffs or stuff like that, or
Yeah.
even being interviewed. It's like everybody, probably, or some people come, hey, you did great. And I
Yeah.
watch it myself and I, oh my God, who's this guy? He's terrible. Please delete this. So probably I will ask you to delete this one as well.
You can't. It's too late.
Okay, I guess too late.
It's too late.
Okay.
But Richard is pretty much always right. So yeah, listen to Richard. Listen
Okay,
to Richard.
let's listen to Richard. A pleasure, Toldo. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you for listening to another episode of What Makes You Tick. I hope that you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed having the conversation.
Absolutely. There's so much value in learning from virtual mentors, people that have already gone through incredible careers and they've got wonderful stories and lessons that they can share for you to have a bigger and better career in tech. And if you like this sort of content, we've also got a newsletter that we publish weekly called Growth Magnet, all about tech startups, leadership, scaling and performance. We'll put a link in the show notes and it'll be fantastic to see your comments on our next post.